We've covered homes, we've covered townhomes, and now if you're looking to buy a high-rise condo, there are at least 7 very important things that you need to know. We're going to go over the top 7. Chris Schilling of Turbo Realty is here this morning. Chris, thank you for being here. And you've got your trusty Steve Jobs iPad.
I'm in mourning. I'm wearing my black suit.
First tip, what can you pass along to us?
First thing is that when you move into a high-rise, you just don't think about the limited space. In a conventional home, single family, you got all that attic space, you've got closets. And so when people downsize and move into a high-rise, they just don't think about how much space that they need, and so they end up being overwrought with boxes. So storage is a huge concern. You may need to rent additional storage space, but check out the association. Sometimes they rent additional space for storage. Also something that people need to consider, you know, you've got a house, perhaps you've got a yard, the pets can run free. Much different story if you're in a high-rise with a dog or a cat. You know, it can be difficult. You have to plan this a little bit better. So, you know, go over, get in the elevator, ride the elevator down, you know, go outside. You need to identify where those pet spots are, where you can walk the pets, and also make sure that you pick up their droppings. Also, with thank you for bringing that up, by the way. Just got a nice visual. Valet service at high-rise condos. What's protocol for tipping? Yeah, so normally whenever you have a valet service, they'll park your cars and they do those kinds of things. That's part of the regular service. But if they actually bring your goods or services, your groceries up to your apartment complex, if they do something a little extra, you know, lift heavy boxes for you, bring things up and down, typically you tip them then. But what we did was we just tipped them at the end of the year. And beyond just rent, there are more fees with condos, right? You bet. And so with a condominium, a high-rise condominium, there's fees that are associated with running the property, and so they can be very expensive. In fact, some of the properties here in Houston, I've seen the condo fees, the monthly condo fees, to be $2,000 to $3,000. That doesn't include your taxes. Now, that's a real high-end property there. That's a high-end property, but generally speaking, they're going to be more expensive. So they range from $200 to $5,000, and so you really need to pay attention to what those things are. What kind of financial stumbles can condo buyers face? Yeah, and so this is a huge problem with a lot of the newer projects. If you have a new high-rise condominium, whenever they're building it out, there's a thing called warrantable or non-warrantable, and it really affects whether or not you can or cannot get a conventional mortgage. And so that's based on how many units are rented and or how many units are owned by one person. And so the bank will look at those as being a little riskier investment. They consider them non-warrantable, so you may not be able to get conventional financing. So it's really important both on the buy side, you know, whenever you're purchasing it, as well as on the sell side, how it could affect your value. We mentioned the valet service. What about parking in general? You've oftentimes have to pay extra for parking, don't you? Well, and so a lot of them don't have like one parking space, and most of us have 2 cars these days. And so you need to look into whether you can or cannot rent an additional space and or purchase a space from one of the other tenants that's in the building that's not using theirs. So that's something to take into consideration. And finally, reserving funds is very important. What do you mean by that? This is a huge problem with these. You need to look at the financial statements for the high-rise condominium to make sure that they've got adequate resources to run and manage the building. It's just like a checking account. So if they're running low on funds, there could be a special assessment where they charge you more money, so this thing could get more expensive than you anticipated. So make sure that you look at their financials. Chris Schilling, Turbo Realty. Great stuff as always. Thank you, sir. You bet.